You know, it gets to a point where you just have to ask yourself, where is Nintendo? Because 2025 was looking to be a fantastic year for Nintendo, and I'm not saying it's terrible, I'm just saying, where are they? So, future me jumping in here, I'm editing, and I am aware that this morning Nintendo did announce that there was going to be a Kirby Air Riders Direct. I just wanted to put this in here that yes, I am aware, but I still mostly agree with all the points in my video that I made, so I'm going to upload it anyways. Because although the situation is getting rectified, Nintendo's silence up until this point, it's kind of ridiculous that I even got here, so just please keep in mind as I make my future points that, this wasn't something that I knew yet. So anyways, back to the video. But to truly understand where I'm coming from, we have to turn the clock back to 2024, because last year Nintendo was awfully quiet, but also it was the type of year where a lot of people were somewhat expecting it. There was a lot of debate on whether the Switch 2 was going to be coming out last year or this year. And of course, we know the cases that it came out this year, being announced in April. But aside of that year-long discussion, most people would agree that they understood that the Switch generation was coming to an end and the next generation was going to start anytime. Because of that, most people understood that because the next big thing was just around the corner, we weren't going to be getting the biggest blockbuster games that year. And for the most part, Nintendo was pretty quiet, with most of the games getting released being either remakes, remasters, or ports. And about 1 week before the big Switch 2 reveal happened, we got a Nintendo Direct. And the only reason why I want to mention this is because they announced Nintendo Today, to which I'll get back to in a minute. Eventually we get there, the big day, April 2nd, the day of the 1 hour long Nintendo Switch 2 Focus Direct, and it was phenomenal. It's everything that everybody just really wanted. Tons of new games were announced. The console looked pretty cool. I mean, underwhelming to some, but to a certain degree, you gotta admit, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So I was personally happy with that at least. But one thing that they also announced during the Switch 2 Direct that got a lot of people excited was that every single day they had promised to announce something new on the Nintendo Today app about the Nintendo Switch 2. And of course, I had my expectations in place where I understood that not every day was going to be groundbreaking. But although not every day could be groundbreaking, at least a day could have been groundbreaking, because there was genuinely nothing that they announced there that was worth really tuning in any of the days. Or at least not that I can remember. If you remember something in the comments, let me know. But regardless of that, eventually time passes and we finally get there. Launch day, June 5th, and overall, things went well. There weren't very many shortages. People that wanted a system got a system. There was tons of backlash and controversy, but like I said, the people that wanted one was able to get one. That's smooth to me. But here's the thing, launching a console in June was a little odd in my opinion, because if you looked at Nintendo Switch 2's launch lineup, it was pretty bare bones. I mean, I'm talking about new experiences. In terms of new experience, you had the Nintendo Tour thing, I don't remember what the name is, but also you had Mario Kart World, and most people buying a Switch 2 was buying it to play Mario Kart World. The next game we knew that was coming from Nintendo was Donkey Kong Bonanza. But other than that, there was no release dates for any more games, so we didn't necessarily know what to expect beyond Donkey Kong Bonanza. Theoretically, it would make sense for June to have a Nintendo Direct to talk about these new release dates, because Nintendo typically does make a Direct in June. But as Kit and Krista pointed out once in a podcast, it's not like Nintendo just makes a Direct just for the sake of making one. They need to have a reason, and at that point in time, there was no reason to necessarily have one, because they just released Mario Kart World and the Switch 2, so it just kind of didn't make sense at that point. But maybe we could have gotten a Direct in July. That would also make sense, because we still need those announcements to be done sooner rather than later, because in July, we're in the second half of the year at that point. And now, here we are, in the month of August, and we still don't have any release dates for Metroid Prime 4, that is allegedly coming out this year, for Kirby Air Riders, that is allegedly coming this year, and also the Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, that the only reason why we know it's going to be in this year is because everywhere it's saying is coming out in winter. However, in some country it was listed as 2025. And then I guess we also have Splatoon Raiders, to which we have absolutely zero idea when that one's coming out either, at least as far as I'm aware. But I have a theory on what's going on. But first, I have a short message. If this is your first time here, hey, my name's Acadrien and I post weekly Nintendo videos just like this. So if that sounds like something you would enjoy, I would greatly appreciate it if you would simply consider to like and subscribe. And without further ado, let's go right back into the video. At the moment, my current theory is that Nintendo was overconfident with how they were going to launch the Nintendo Switch 2. Let's be real, Nintendo is well aware of the situation. Typically, it's not necessarily selling the console that is going to be their biggest moneymaker. Selling the games for the console is what's going to be making all the money for them. And of course, people are not going to buy games for a system they do not have. So Nintendo's priority, I imagine this year, was going to be simply getting people's hands on the Nintendo Switch 2. At least to me, this would explain why they're not coming out the gate swinging with Switch 2. Because they're kind of just waiting for people to buy the systems. They want to make sure that, there's enough time for everyone to pick one up. So when they do announce the next big game, when they do release the next big game, there will be an audience to buy the game, and for all the games that they do release to have these big launches. Another thing that kind of enforces that thought for me is with these new Switch 2 edition games, where they're just adding on a little bit of DLC to Switch games. They're just wanting you to fill in the gaps between the big releases with just revisiting old ones. And I don't know, man, I don't regret my purchase with the Switch 2, it's just kind of disappointing that they're kind of leaving us hanging with some of these new releases. And I do understand that there's most likely going to be a new Nintendo Direct in September, and they'll definitely talk about these games. It's like I said, it's just kind of disappointing that they're so slow with it, but hey, what do I know? But with that being said, I want to hear from you. When do you think the next Nintendo Direct is going to be? Let me know down in the comments. I would once again like to thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. And if you did enjoy this video, why not check out another one? For whatever reason, YouTube thinks that you'll enjoy this one, so try checking out that one next. And until next time, Wadao.